On the agenda and the efforts to undermine President Trump in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller. Stephen, it's great to have you this morning. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And I want to start with the Russia collusion story because I know you lived it as well. They also tried to spy on you. They wanted your emails, subpoenaed you as they left people really with their lives changed. Your reaction to what was released this week?
The Russia collusion hoax against President Trump remains the single greatest hoax and the greatest assault on our democracy in the history of this country. There's no comparison, there's no parallel to anything else. It was a coup, and I'm using that term literally. It was a coup to overthrow a democratically elected government, a coup carried out by the intelligence apparatus of this country, by the deep state, by Hillary Clinton and the Democrat Party. The new information that has been revealed by the Director of National Intelligence and by the FBI eliminates any scintilla of doubt about the intention, the premeditation, the planning and orchestration of this conspiracy. It meets all of the criminal elements of a seditious conspiracy against the United States. It meets the criminal elements of an insurrection. It meets the criminal elements of a conspiracy against the government and the criminal elements of a conspiracy to deprive citizens of their civil rights under color of law. One egregious felony after another. And because it is a conspiracy, as demonstrated by the forethought of realizing and documenting that they understood that this was fake from the beginning, meeting the mens rea standard in law. Because of that, because it is a conspiracy, every single individual actor is now part of that conspiracy. So that includes Brennan and Clapper and Comey and Hillary and Schiff and everybody else who knowingly and willfully perpetrated this plot, this coup, this conspiracy, this scheme against President Trump and the government of the United States. And now is the time and the hour and the moment for accountability so that we can reclaim this democracy, Maria.
Well, do you believe we will actually get accountability? We've been demanding accountability now for a decade. Our audience is well aware that this is the biggest political scandal we have ever seen and an effort to undermine and take down a duly elected president. But now we want to see the tricksters face the consequences. Will they?
I have complete confidence in the Department of Justice to follow these facts, to follow this new, further avalanche of evidence, and to take all the necessary legal steps to ensure that the wrongdoers, the coup plotters, the schemers, and the insurrectionists are held fully accountable under the laws and Constitution of these United States. Yes, Maria, I believe that.
Now, last weekend, John Ratcliffe, CIA director, who is a former prosecutor, former DNI, told us that the statute of limitations, the 5-year statute, does not apply when it comes to conspiracy. And he says the conspiracy is ongoing because they still won't admit it. The conspiracy is still happening. So what is your take on what Ratcliffe told us last week?
Oh, he's completely right. So several of the statutes I mentioned, we have not even come close to eclipsing the statute of limitations. But more than that, it is an ongoing and continuing conspiracy. It continued through the entirety of President Trump's first term. It continued through the entirety of President Biden's term in office, and it continues to this day. There are still deep state coup plotters who are trying to conceal and hide this information on behalf of the people they are protecting. There are still staffers in Democrat offices who know the full truth, who are concealing that truth. So all of this behavior, all of this conduct collectively means the conspiracy hasn't ended, is ongoing. Comey, in particular, has throughout the years engaged in conduct and lies, public statements, and testimony in front of Congress. False testimony, whose sole purpose was to perpetuate and continue the conspiracy. So I have every hope and expectation that the Department of Justice, under the leadership of our courageous Attorney General, will follow these facts and follow the evidence and deliver justice. Because if we have a country where we can continue to have FBI careerists and CIA careerists, deep staters, who will fabricate and doctor evidence, who will create and produce fake material, fabricated material, phony information to try to go after their political enemies, up to and including the president. If we continue to create the impression and the reality that there is not a criminal, a severe criminal penalty for such conduct, it will never stop. It will never desist. It will keep on going forever. And we will continue to have a country that is sabotaged endlessly by the production of fake documents, fake material, fake plots against democratically elected officials. We can't have that. There must be consequences.
Well, I mean, it's just extraordinary to me that the mainstream media has completely ignored this story. And they obviously were complicit from day one, being the quote-unquote useful idiots of the cabal to spread this nonsense across the world. But the Russia collusion lie had such an incredible impact. People went to jail. They should not have. People were raided. They raided Mar-a-Lago, President Trump's home, looking for these documents, according to Devin Nunes, who told us
By the way, that's a great
week.
point. The Mar-a-Lago raid was a perpetuation and continuation of this same conspiracy. They went in search and in hopes of trying to recover the documents that would implicate their own criminal conduct.
That's right.
The entire raid was a perpetuation of this same criminal scheme, as you mentioned. And so many innocent people suffered irreparable harm. Paul Manafort was left to rot in a prison cell because of this ridiculous investigation, this witch hunt that is carried out. How many homes were raided? How many documents were taken? Emails were taken against the innocent, against people whose only crime was working for President Trump.
Right.
And everything that has happened, including, I would argue, all of the interference in 2024 that took place and in 2020 that took place, all the dirty tricks that kept taking place against President Trump were all part of a desire to keep him from getting back into the Oval Office to uncover and expose and share with the world the full truth of what happened, as we are seeing now, Maria.
They also set up General Mike Flynn. Let's not forget about that. There were so many implications of this lie. But even more so, let's talk about the impact to the American people. Because while Adam Schiff was going on the Sunday political shows, and he was the chairman of the Intelligence Committee for a time, saying there's collusion in plain sight. When you have that kind of a title, you're the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and you say there's collusion in plain sight, we believe you. You've got the job. You must have seen more than we've seen. So to outwardly lie like that because you have that title. Same thing with former director of CIA, John Brennan. He's got that title. We believe him because he says it. So all of this, when they were running around, Russia, 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 how much did they miss? How much did they leave on the cutting room floor? For example, right now, we are dependent on China for 90% of the underlying components for our prescription drugs. We saw Russia invade Ukraine, more territory. We saw Iran continue to build up nuclear weaponry. All of the things that actually matter to the American people were not the focus
the cost,
for 10 years.
Is incalculable. The cost is incalculable of having the entire security apparatus of this country focusing on the hoax instead of the real national security threats facing America.
Right.
Lie after lie after lie that was told to the American people, preventing us from actually solving our relationship with Russia, preventing us from actually developing security and independence from all of our adversaries around the world, dealing with these big geopolitical questions. Instead, we were consumed endlessly by the same hoax, the same lie. And the charlatans that engage in this conduct are beneath contempt. They are without dignity, and they are beyond redemption. What they have done, you can't even measure the harm that it inflicted.
Stephen, real quick before you go, take us to today, because President Trump has these deadlines underway. He is telling Russia, you've got days that are numbered. August 8th is the deadline to stop this war in Ukraine. What is he going to do in terms of sanctions? Can he actually stop this war? And what about China and a trade deal?
Well, so first of all, we've never been in a stronger place economically than we are right now. not only because the president passed the largest ever tax cut and relief in American history, not only because he's opened up American energy to a degree never seen before, eliminated all of the wasteful regulations, streamlining our economy, but because he has used trade to strengthen instead of weaken America. The trade deal with the EU, the trade deal with Japan, the trade deal with Korea. The tariff revenue that is reducing our deficit. So now we're in a position of economic strength to deal with Russia and to deal with this war that he inherited from Joe Biden, who is responsible for this travesty. The whole Democrat Party is responsible for this travesty in Europe. So what he said very clearly is that it is not acceptable for India to continue financing this war by purchasing the oil from Russia. People will be shocked to learn that India is basically tied with China in purchasing Russian oil. That's an astonishing fact. India portrays itself as being one of our closest friends in the world, but they don't accept our products. They impose massive tariffs on us. We also know they engage in a lot of cheating on immigration policies that is very harmful to American workers. And of course, we see again the purchasing of oil. So President Trump, look, he wants a tremendous relationship and has had always a tremendous relationship with India and the Prime Minister. But we need to get real about dealing with the financing of this war. So President Trump, all options are on the table to deal diplomatically, financially, and otherwise with the ongoing war in Ukraine so we can achieve peace and end the war that the Democrat Party and Joe Biden are responsible for.
Very good. Stephen Miller, great to talk with you. Thanks so much. We'll be watching your work, obviously.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
Hello 啊，大家好，歡迎嚟到天下知多啲，我係 Dennis。今日咧其實咧有好多題目嘅，都好亂啊，即係好多 mix 嘅題目啦，因為都好多嘢發生緊。咁咧本來咧諗住一節節啦，咁而家我諗都係一節節，都會一節節咁樣出㗎啦。咁就頭先咧就係主要咧，我就想話即係重複嘅，就係如果而家呢個即係頭先就其實係想俾大家睇，好明顯睇得到啊！我哋嘅左媒、主流傳媒係嗰種嘅偏頗。喺2022年嗰陣時咧，就已經有媒體揾到個 Epstein File 嗰個 Epstein List 同 Epstein 呢啲 case 嗰啲咁嘅嘢嘅。咁啊，嗰個係 ABC 添啊，嗰個係 ABC， 佢就想報嗰個記者佢就想報出嚟，佢想話俾人知呢樣嘢嘅，但係咧可惜咧就冇發生到咯。咁而家呢個就係頭先Steve Miller 咧講嗰樣嘢咯。咁而家唔單止淨係呢樣嘢，仲有即係民主黨嗰啲人咧。你真係難以想像啊！嗰啲咁嘅卑鄙無恥，你真係難以想像。成班民主黨人竟然咧就選擇離開，即係佢要開會㗎嘛。當佢要開會嗰陣時咧，佢哋就選擇離開德州。因為而家德州咧，佢哋又要劃區啊。咁而家佢哋要劃嗰個區咧，其實都唔關阿 Trump 事嘅，即係阿 Trump 知啦，會佢哋點樣劃，好似加州咁啊嘛。加州劃選區都劃到亂晒龍㗎，又唔見我哋即係啲加州共和，我哋始終共和黨嗰啲人咧，真係好老啊，民主黨啲爛佬啊！啲垃圾嚟嘅啲民主黨，真係卑鄙無恥淨係只要佢贏，佢一唔贏發爛渣嗰啲嚟嘅，即係哇！即係垃圾到不堪，我哋可以睇下
And now, runaway drama queens. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Well, they can run, but they cannot hide. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott dropping the hammer on Texas Democrats who fled the state. They're trying to block a Republican redistricting plan ahead of the midterms. There are consequences for dereliction of duty, he said just a few hours ago, announcing arrest warrants for all missing Democrats in the House there. Now, although Texas authorities, they don't reach beyond state boundaries, Abbott's making a key point. Democrats are the true threats to democracy. Unless they get the results they want, they're going to do everything in their power to undermine it. You heard it from Mike as we opened the show. On the national level, they did what they did against Trump, and now in Texas, they're doing what they're doing now. And I love how, just like the illegal aliens that they love, the Democrats love to protect them, these liberals in Texas fled to sanctuary jurisdictions. And get this, in one case, on a private jet to Chicago. And it was like watching really bad summer stock theater.
We will not relent to an authoritarian president that wants to steal and racially gerrymander our black and brown districts.
This extraordinary set of a quorum break is so that your voices can be heard.
This is the destruction of America and the destruction of value of our vote. So you see me? Look at here. Bye. I'm out, but I'm here for you.
I'm here for you as I leave for Chicago. But come on, what courage, what sacrifice.
This is the last tool that we have to stop Trump. If politicians can simply stop listening to their people, it's over. Our democracy, everything that America stands for, will be gone.
They're going to inspire other people who have been wanting to see Democrats stand and fight, because this comes at great personal risk to them.
Our Texas state legislators are courageous in fighting the Trump map.
I hope that Texas Democrats taking this heroic step inspires more heroism, and that courage will inspire more courage.
Okay, courage. This is not Selma. All right, this isn't the March on Washington. This is a taxpayer-funded retreat with better catering. But look, this is all the Democrats have: stunts, play acting, and tantrums for TikTok. Now, a few months ago, they had their anti-Doge tantrums outside the Department of Education and USAID. Then came the scuffles with security outside ICE detention facilities in places like New Jersey. It was all political theater. Then there was Senator Alex Padilla's Emmy Award-winning role of crashing DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's press conference. And now, the Texas Democrats.
Listen, Donald Trump is a piece of shit. Okay, we know that. Yes, yes. He is. He is. He is. But in a functioning democracy, he still would not be able to get away with this.
Meanwhile, Democrats' host in Chicago, Governor J.B. Pritzker, is playing the role of kind of the godfather here, lending a hand with messaging.
Texas Democrats were left no choice but to leave their home state, block a vote from taking place, and protect their constituents. This is a righteous act of courage.
So, from one failed leader to another. I mean, this is all they have. Getting in on the Texas Democrats Act is easier for Pritzker than solving his state's problems. Of course, all caused by liberal leadership, including the fact that, oh, sorry, JB, though, 262,000 people have fled Illinois since he took office. And for those Texas Dems who wanted to go a little further east, well, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, her state's doing wonderfully, was ready to take them all in.
I cannot stand by and let this happen while Donald Trump and his co-conspirator, Greg Abbott, erode our democracy and drag us toward authoritarianism. This is a war. We are at war. And that's why the gloves are off, and I say, bring it on.
We're at war, huh? Imagine if the Republicans were using that language so casually. But this isn't a new stunt from the Democrats. They tried it all back in 2021. Back then, Democrats fled the state to stop an election reform bill. Governor Greg Abbott simply called another special session, and the bill passed anyway. But the voters don't really want political escapism, do they? Because they know they deserve serious leadership. And they're getting it from Trump and red state governors who are getting the job done. So to all those Democrats jet-setting across state lines, enjoy the room service. Because when you return, you'll be right back where you left off, out of power, out of moves, and out of excuses. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews.
難以想像啊！我就奇怪我哋呢度啲共和黨就容許咧俾民主黨畫個地圖咧畫到亂晒龍㗎。我哋咧係可以咧一個 district 係由東去到西可以係成25米 freeway。OK， 呢個就係佢哋畫㗎啦。嗰啲散到冇人有嘅，佢哋就將我哋啲共和黨嗰啲區咧，共和黨比較集中嘅地方就拆散去，拆開兩邊，所以咧就變咗個形狀咧就好鬼怪嘅嗱，我哋呢度都係我哋呢度民主黨揸 fit 啊嘛，咁咪冇辦法，我哋就唔會好似佢哋咁無恥走咗去抗議因為有個規矩，咁而家咧上一次2021年佢哋都做過呢樣嘢㗎啦，跟住之後咧又咪班友就咪又係死氣翻嚟咯，呢啲根本係嗰啲小動作。令到啲人咧就可以即係做新聞咁樣，差唔多可以話俾人知我幾偉大，我幫你。其實最無恥、最反民主嘅一個行為嚟嘅。咁咧，仲有一個即係你啲左膠咧，左膠真係佢啲左膠可以係。即係好似共產黨，你只要搞人好似又做呢啲咁嘅動作，就係如果點樣講？If you can't win the game, you change the rule 嗰啲咧，即係嗰啲咁嘅人所以極之無恥。極之難去認同啦，應該你正常人你冇可能會認同，你冇覺得佢哇好偉大幫我哋抗爭爭取爭取佢爭取個畫地圖啫嘛，而家喺德州嗰邊就喺度畫地圖啊嘛，佢哋就覺得你畫到咧係即係將又好似我哋即係佢覺得畫個地圖畫到咧聚晒。共和黨一齊嗰啲 district 因為跟住，因為我哋呢度咧係啲 county 啊嘛，一個 county 啊嘛，佢啲 county 佢個 district 咧咁樣計啦，就係佢就民主黨就唔中意咁樣畫法跟住就走咗去啦。咁咪搭飛機走咗去，真係無知咯，都唔知點樣講。你認同呢啲嘢嗰啲人，你都個腦都有問題啦。跟住下一個就係人哋嘅 model 嚟嘅嘛，好地地一個 model，又係要搞佢
I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has very keen.
成個嘅問題就係呢句嘢，拎走咗呢個字，就係只係因為 Sydney Sweeney has a great genes， 咁因為呢個 great genes 個 genes 同嗰個基因嘅同音咁佢就話呢個姐姐咧 呢位妹妹啦，唔係姐姐，呢個妹妹嚇，佢細我好多嚇。呢位妹妹咧，個腦今日真係唔掂啊！嚇，因為見到冇人睇，冇人睇出唔到去 check 啲流量，突然之間死晒，都唔知 YouTube 搞乜啦。我一陣間嚇。唔理啦 ，OK， 咁啊，就係因為呢句嘢就導致佢哋咧就導致佢哋就要封殺佢想結果咧就唔好意思啦俾大家睇下呢個咧，呢個就係搞笑版，係攞嚟即係攞嚟回應翻班左膠嘅。阿 Trump 都有回應嘅，陣間我同大家再睇下阿 Trump 點樣回應。俾大家睇呢個搞笑版先嚇。
Sydney hit the screen and den, blonde and smiling, clean and bright. American eagle lit the fire, and the woke crowd cried all night. Said this looks too perfect, dangerous, too symmetrical, too white. While the market just kept climbing.
OK， 頭先嗰條片咧就唔係 American Eagle 自己出嘅，咁個廣告咧就係 American Eagle 自己出，咁American Eagle 嗰個 CEO 都收工啦。佢出現呢個俾人哋批評之後咧，佢即係好渣啊！即係承受唔起嗰個壓力啊！竟然即係呢樣嘢真係啲左膠勢力其實真係唔係咁大嘅啫，因為之後咧American Eagle 咧賣到斷貨咁滯啊！聽講啲人個個走晒去買牛仔褲着。你話真係有時咧啲左膠啊真係壞腦啊嚇！左膠壞腦到真係你難以置信啊！咁咧 fly off the shelf 啊，係嘛 ？fly off， 因為英文 flying off the shelf 嘅意思咧就係賣晒啊，喺個清假啊！咁咧我哋 other hand 咧 Jagger 又係咁啦 ，Jagger 又係啦，啲 woke advertisement 啦，又係想搞啲咁，但係都係不 like 嗰啲咧，全部咧都搞過晒㗎啦，已經都係死路一條㗎啦。啲 woke 即係冇前途㗎 woke cancel culture woke 呢啲咧，全部都係冇前途不 like 係嘛 ？Shouldn't they have learned a lesson from 不 like 係咪？不 like 咧就係嗰個變性人咧，都唔知係咪變性啊？我覺得唔係變性，我覺得只係男扮女裝咯，佢就唔係真係唔係真係切埋嗰隻嚟嘅，我相信又冇隆胸嘅冇成嘅，就咁樣咧就係男扮女裝咁而家都冇咗影啦，都唔知去咗邊啦失咗蹤啦。咁佢咪不 like 走去揾佢賣廣告啊嘛，咁結果咧就死得啦冇人飲不 like。好正常啊！飲得啤酒嗰班都係即係男人嚟講都係 man， 即係都係男係男女係女嗰啲嚟。就算啲女人飲嗰啲啤酒都係女係女男係男咁樣好鮮明，即係好傳統。我唔會話傳統咁嘅，根本係好正常嘅。咁而家佢哋咁啦woke 升又係蝕錢啦，又死啦，即係全部啲 woke 都死得㗎啦變 republic。佢又話咧因為啲人都唔知道究竟佢衰乜嘢啊嘛，係咪呢個賣 gene 個 gene？ 咁咧啲人即係其實有個新聞已經訪問咗啲人㗎啦，訪問咗又係 Fox 嘅，即係得 Fox 啊！你有時話你淨係報 Fox。但係冇辦法你唔係報 Fox 報咩你第二啲媒體冇人報啊嘛，咁唯有報 Fox 咯，唯有夾 Fox 咯就唔係因為 propaganda， 係因為只有 Fox 先走去訪問嗰啲人，喂你點睇呢個Sydney Sweeney 呢件事咁樣，去訪問啲左膠啲左膠話佢梗係唔啱啦，啲 white supremacists 嚟嘅根本影射即係完全你將呢個同埋呢個呢啲牛仔褲係白人至上先會着㗎，係啲白人着㗎咁樣嗰啲咧，搞到無論啦
So I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, Oh my God, it was what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
Well, let me say just a couple of things. First of all, the president has been very clear. We're not shielding anything. The president has directed the attorney general to release all credible information and, frankly, to go and find additional credible information related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. He's been incredibly transparent about that stuff, but some of that stuff takes time. You've got to assemble that stuff. You've got to compile that stuff. You've got to redact some victims' names so that you protect the victims. But the president has been very clear. He wants full transparency. He's asked that from the attorney general, and I know, because I talk to her all the time, the attorney general is hard at work on that issue right now. But I think I got to make an observation that there's an interesting thing about this case that the American media seems to totally ignore. For 4 years, under Joe Biden's Department of Justice, the media didn't give a damn about the Epstein Files or about the Epstein case. For literally 20 years, the story about this scumbag, and he is a scumbag pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, he's dead now, but for 20 years, you had Obama and George W. Bush's Department of Justice go easy on this guy. They didn't fully investigate the case. They didn't show any curiosity about the case. And now Donald J. Trump is asking his Department of Justice to show full transparency. And somehow that's a criticism of Donald J. Trump and not Barack Obama and George W. Bush. If you want to criticize the people who aren't showing full transparency, you ought to go after the administrations that went easy on Jeffrey Epstein, the administrations that concealed this case for 20 years, and the administrations that failed to show full transparency. Donald J. Trump, I'm telling you, he's got nothing to hide. His administration has got nothing to hide, and that's why he's been an advocate for full transparency in this case. He's going to keep on being an advocate for full transparency, but while we're focused on that case, Donald J. Trump is also worried about making sure these great workers get more take-home pay and better jobs, and that's the focus of the administration. Thank you.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has unveiled shocking new evidence that former President Barack Obama and top aides in the Obama administration conspired to subvert President Trump's 2016 election victory and undermine the democratic will of the American people. While publicly pretending to engage in a peaceful transfer of power, in private, former President Obama went to great and nefarious lengths to try to sow discord among the public and sabotage his successor, President Trump. The new evidence released by the Director of National Intelligence, who is here with me today, confirms that the Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump in an effort to try to delegitimize his victory before he even took the oath of office. The truth is that President Trump never had anything to do with Russia, and the Russia collusion hoax was a massive fraud perpetuated on the American people from the very beginning. And the worst part of this is Obama knew that truth, and so did all of the other corrupt officials involved in this scam, including former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, and many others. Director of National Intelligence Gabbard's report further confirms what we already knew. There was no collusion, no corruption, except on the part of Barack Obama and the weaponized intelligence agencies at the time. The Russia hoax was a blatant lie, all ginned up by Democrat political operatives that were signed off on by then President Obama and leaked to the news media to launch a years-long witch hunt against President Trump and his first administration. Allies of the president, including his own son, Donald Trump Jr., were disgustingly smeared as Russian assets, and some even had their lives destroyed because of this vicious lie. The president's first 2 years in office had this fake distraction hanging over it, and endless resources, time, and political capital were spent having to debunk these lies from the highest levels of our government. Now, nearly 10 years later, thanks to the declassification of documents by Director Gabbard, the truth has finally come to light. And this truth vindicates President Trump, his family, and his many allies and associates who were smeared with defamatory lies. President Trump was right from the beginning about all of this, and we are grateful that justice can be served. Now, we have even more damning evidence implicating those who tried to sabotage a duly elected president and did grave material harm to our republic. Thanks to additional important work done by CIA Director Ratcliffe, Committee Chairman Rick Crawford over the past few months, a newly declassified 2020 report prepared by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, which DNI Director Gabbard has declassified, found that the intel community did not have any direct information that Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted to help elect President Trump in 2016. And in fact, Russia was actively preparing for a Hillary Clinton victory. But at the unusual direction of Barack Obama at the time, the intel community published implausible intelligence suggesting otherwise. Why? To sabotage the incoming president. This is truly one of the greatest political scandals in American history. And reporters at legacy outlets, some of which are sitting in this room today, like the New York Times and the Washington Post, were ridiculously awarded Pulitzer Prizes for their perpetuation of this hoax. It's well past time for those awards to be stripped from the journalists who receive them. It is not journalism to propagate political disinformation in service of the Democrat Party and those in the intelligence community who hand over out of context and fake intelligence to push a false political narrative. I will now pass it over to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, to speak more about all of this, and then we will open it up for questions afterwards. Tulsi, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. At President Trump's direction and with the support and coordination with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford, today we've released a declassified Oversight Majority Staff report that was produced in September of 2020. The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration. We're here today because the American people deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice. The records that we released on Friday that were ODNI records, Senator Chuck Grassley's release on Monday of what is known as the Clinton Annex, which was an appendix to the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General's 2018 report, as well as the House Intelligence Committee's majority oversight report that we're releasing today, all come back to and confirm the same report. There was a gross politicization and manipulation of intelligence by the Obama administration intended to delegitimize President Trump even before he was inaugurated, ultimately usurping the will of the American people. I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered, John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory. The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous. The intelligence community assessment omitted reliably sourced information, such as how some Russian intelligence officials were quote-unquote planning for candidate Hillary Clinton's victory, while others assessed neither Trump nor Clinton would respect Russia's interests. As was reflected in the ODNI documents that we released on Friday, multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community. The production of this intelligence community assessment was subject to unusual directives directly from the president and senior political appointees, especially the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report also shows how later that same day, on December 9th, Brennan ordered the publication of quote-unquote substandard reporting on Russian activities, which had previously been withheld from publication of prior assessments because the information was judged, quote, to have not met long-standing publication standards. Some of the information later used in the Obama-ordered assessment over the objections of veteran CIA officers was quote-unquote unclear or from unknown sources. The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, "We don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected." Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, "We assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him," end of quote. The CIA and FBI, then led by John Brennan and James Comey, expressed high confidence in this judgment, while the NSA expressed moderate confidence. Yet, as the report we released today shows, the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, did not cite any report where Putin indicated helping Trump win was an objective. The opposite is true. With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, "Contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex." John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway. CIA officer told the House Intelligence Committee staff as they investigated this, quote, "The director of the CIA, John Brennan, refused to remove it, and when confronted with the dossier's many flaws, responded, quote, 'Yes, but doesn't it ring true?'" Even the bipartisan Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report published in 2020 criticized the FBI's handling of the Steele dossier, noting its completely unverified nature and purposeful sidestepping of intelligence community procedures in its use. Now, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and others, including their mouthpieces in the media, knowingly lied as they repeated the contrived narrative that was created in this January 2017 intelligence community assessment with high confidence as though it were fact. John Brennan, as CIA director, stated in a memo to his agency staff in December of 2016, saying, quote, "There is strong consensus among us on the scope, nature, and intent of Russian interference in our presidential election." This was reported by NBC News, confirming that Brennan, along with James Clapper and James Comey, agreed with the CIA's assessment that Russia intervened to help Trump win the presidency. As Obama's Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper was tasked with overseeing the creation of this assessment in January of 2017 by President Obama, and he expressed confidence in its findings. In a 2018 interview with the Harvard Gazette, he talked about how he provided Trump with the same classified assessment that President Obama received, which included the high confidence judgment that Putin directly ordered the hacking and election interference. Clapper then went on to add, "I think they, the Russians, actually influenced the outcome." This is a brief summary of the details that you'll find within the House Majority Staff's report in their investigation into the Obama-directed January 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment. That leads us to the very same conclusion that we announced in the release of our documents on Friday. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump. Thank you.
呢個真係好鬼快手嗰啲人咧，幾快啊！整咗個 Trump 着住個牛仔衫褲， 就係 American Eagle 因為啲左膠，呢度啲左膠其實即係好似我哋香港嗰啲藍絲咁樣嘅唔係最奇怪咧，就係咧唔係一兩個人嘅，係好似成班咁樣咧去批評American Eagle 呢個品牌咁樣嘅。咁咧開始嗰陣時咧，我即係有 check 過啦，真係喺主要都係喺 TikTok 嗰度先見到嘅喎。跟住我哋當然啦 X 嗰度之後就見到有啲報道啦，但係主要咧都係喺 TikTok 同埋有幾個嗰啲左嘅藍絲，即係左膠 influencer 啦，佢哋叫香港先叫KOL 嘅，鬼佬咧美國咧就叫influencer 嘅幾個左膠 influencer 啦，就喺度批評開始嘅。咁 Fox News 都有報導到，咁我就冇攞佢出嚟咯。咁啊真係好搞笑咯，就係只係賣牛仔褲。咁啊因為呢個 Sydney Sweeney 咧係共和黨嘅人，咁就真係因為佢係共和黨嘅咁就唔得。唔通真係一定要民主黨話晒事先得咩？咁所以呢個真係獨裁嗰個 mindset 同共和黨差好遠。民主黨同共和黨，民主黨根本就冇民主，佢根本就唔會，佢只會容許民主黨有自由，即係好似共和黨、好似共產黨咁啫嘛。共產黨個憲法係寫俾共產黨嗰啲嗰幾個人言論自由出版自由不過上邊冇你個名啊嘛，咁樣嗰啲咧就係淨係俾一小部分人睇，所以咧。2026年呢個選舉係非常之重要嘅，我亦都會繼續咧去睇有邊啲好嘅州長候選人，而家就開始一路出嚟啦。就邊個會贏咧？就邊個可以贏到民主黨？呢個就係重點咁我哋都會有圍內啊，即係我哋加州咧就唔係黨內初選嘅，我哋加州咧係 Top 2嘅。我唔知啲人知唔知呢個 Top 2呢個概念係乜嘢？個個出嚟就以為一定會贏，你贏共和黨係唔夠嘅，你一定要贏埋民主黨嘅，因為係 Top 2啊！你啲人多人出嚟就只會戒票，因為戒下唔覺意咧，就整咗2個民主黨喺上邊即係呢條數咧，佢哋一定要識計咯但係就唔知道佢哋識唔識計咯。有個做牧師，我都唔知佢啲政治智慧有幾多，佢係有好多嗰啲 policy 咁方面，但係 policy 嗰啲嘢就出嚟會識點樣去對抗，即係唔老禮民主黨啲政策咁樣啦。好似而家有個 AB 486就係啲家長都冇，即係如果佢表面上咧就係話因為咧如果萬一啲細路咧嗰啲父母咧俾 ICE 拎走咗，跟住咧即係藉口啦，ICE 拎走咗，剩翻個細路喺度咧，咁咧就冇人理佢噶啦嘛。咁咧佢哋咧就政府咧就可以有任何一個人就可以去簽名認領呢個細路咁都得。應該呢啲通常都要經過，我哋有個制度，有個程序要經過 court order 噶嘛，大佬佢唔係唔使總之你阿豬阿狗，你走去學校度，你話呢個細路係我嘅我而家要接佢走，簽個名就得，學校唔俾咩嘛？呢個 AB 486我哋而家要去對抗佢哋呢啲咯，好多呢啲政策我哋呢度 super majority 過3分2嘅民主黨過3分2，州長又係民主黨。我哋呢度嗰個呢個獨裁加州咁嘅獨裁。咁而家咧德州嗰邊就有呢個情況，就係要啲嗰啲就係有班 民主黨唔老禮，共和黨再劃個選區，唔老禮佢哋，跟住咧又唔夠抽，就閃咗去走佬走咗第二個州跟住紐森呢啲嘢又走去喺度吱吱喳喳咁樣啦，竟然簡直係不知所謂啦。咁好奇怪咯，即係非常之奇怪一樣嘢。咁希望咧亦繼續大家繼續支持我天下知多啲。今日咧就夾硬碌，但係都唔知點解真係 YouTube 上，即係今日 YouTube 唔知咩事唔肯將我啲流量發出去。咁可能個圖可能一啲嘢啦，有時係咁嘅，啲電腦嗰啲嘢好 sensitive 㗎。有啲字眼可能 Epstein Files 呢個字或者一啲嘢咯，唔知咁佢咧就唔發㗎啦。同埋有可能佢唔老禮牙創。你知因為我唔知呢個 Google 老細CEO 佢哋成班就可能因為唔老禮牙創，所以咧又搞。即係又玩嘢咯，所以我哋啲言論自由所有嘢咧都受制於好多呢啲咁嘅地方，咁變咗咧一班中間嘅咧就好似得唔到應得嘅資訊咯，冇辦法，我哋繼續努力啦，希望大家繼續幫手